I move that we suspend the rules to allow us to proceed utilizing the Zoom software in lieu of an in-person meeting and in conformance with the governor's prior directives with regard to the COVID provisions.
All right, I have one thing to say. Alderman Nguyen is here. Alderman Nguyen, I'm turning over the gavel. You're muted.
Actually, Alderman Rainey, you're still chair for one more meeting.
I am. It said on the line that I wasn't, but anyway. All right, I'll do it. I'll do it. All right. So, Ms. Neiden, will you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Here. Or so.
This is for suspension of the rules.
Yes, we just suspended
Alderman
the
Nguyen.
rules.
Here.
Oops.
Sorry, the vote should be aye, not here.
Aye. Sorry.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Reese Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Yes.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
And Alderman Rainey.
Aye. Okay. Do we have any speakers signed up?
We have quite a few for different agenda items.
Okay. All right. So, okay. So, I'm just thinking I might be inclined to do it at the beginning, but what would the committee like?
I like it at the beginning.
Yeah, let's
I like
do
it.
it.
at the beginning. Okay. Let me just make one comment ahead of citizen comment. The first item on our agenda having to do with Resolution 73 R20, approving a plat of subdivision for 2404 Ridge Avenue, is being removed from our agenda at the request of the applicant. Just wanted to let
Alderman
everybody
Rainey, it
know.
was to be held.
To be held.
My understanding.
Well, I'm sorry. Absolutely. That was inaccurate. I meant to be held. Yes. Okay. All right. So could we have citizen comment first? Let's do that first, even before we approve the minutes and things.
Okay. Would you like them in the order they were received or by agenda item?
I'll let you make that decision. I'm not.
Okay, let's go in order they were received. The first person signed up is Rick Nelson on P2.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes, so you can hear me?
Sure.
And so right now I actually tried to turn on my screen and I'm blocked, but if that's fine, I can.
Oh. I don't think we blocked you.
Oh, there we go.
There
Okay.
you are.
So good evening. I'm Rick Nelson. I'm the co-chair with Janet Alexander Davis of the Environmental Justice Evanston Committee, which is also known as EJE. EJE is a working committee of CGE, and our committee is participating tonight to support the environmental justice resolution that is before you for approval. So we hope that all the committee members received a document entitled Key Facts on the Environmental Justice Resolution. Before you consider the resolution tonight, I wanted to briefly highlight some of these key facts for you, and I'm going to do it in the same order they are presented in the document. So first, our EJE committee was established by the City of Evanston to work on environmental justice issues. Second, one of the primary mandates for EJE was to create environmental justice policy for the City of Evanston. The third item, I'm going to skip over that. Anyone who's following along in the document, I'm just going to go past that one because it basically relates to the history of our committee, and I think that that's not necessarily relevant for this evening. So moving on to the fourth fact, the significant input for the EJ resolution was provided from numerous sources, including the Environment Board, the Equity and Empowerment Commission, Joanna Leonard and Kumar Jensen and their staffs, who have actually been incredibly helpful to our efforts on the environmental justice resolution. And additionally, some current and past aldermen and the citizens of Evanston. So the point here is really that we got a lot of input from a lot of different sources, and we really didn't put ourselves in a vacuum relative to gathering input to create the resolution. So 5, there is an action item in the CARP plan that calls for the city to adopt an EJ ordinance. So we feel that this is extremely important because if the city is serious about implementing the actions in the CARP plan, the approval of this EJ resolution is a big first step in adopting a subsequent EJ ordinance. 6, the EJ resolution just received 2 key approvals from the Environment Board and the Equity and Empowerment Commission. These are obviously 2 very important city groups that address matters that are relevant to environmental justice in Evanston. And 7, the EJ resolution has significant community support. So we have endorsements from CGE, the Evanston Environmental Association, TIS Media Foundation. We also have support from citizens like Jane Grover, Dolores Holmes, and Robin Gable. From businesses like Remake Architecture and Kombucha Brava. So there's a list of endorsements in the key facts document, and the list is continuously growing. So those are the key facts we wanted to make sure that you were aware of prior to your consideration of the resolution this evening. And just to wrap up, I want to say that our EJE committee believes a lot of good work has been done to put a strong environmental justice resolution before you tonight. We welcome this review, and if you decide to approve the resolution, we hope you will. Our EJE group stands ready to start work immediately on the next big task, which is the EJ ordinance called for by the CARP plan. So that's it, and I just want to thank everybody so much for the opportunity to speak during public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick, very much. Thank you. Next, Ms. Snyder.
Next, we have Darian Halligan. And Alderman Rainey, did you want to do a time limit on speakers?
Yeah,
We have 17 speakers signed up.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, yeah. Rick Nelson got the fair share of all the environment people. Maybe they'll be very thoughtful and just say we agree with him. Okay, who's next?
This is Darian.
Alderman Rainey, do you want me to do 2 minutes, or what would you like?
Let's do 2 minutes, yeah.
Okay.
We have a very long meeting tonight. Hi, good evening.
Hi, how are you guys? Alderman Rainey, the Planning and Development Committee. My name is Darian Halligan. I'm a relatively new resident in Ward 7, and I'm calling here specifically to throw my support under P5 Ordinance 86-0-20. Accessory dwelling units, outside of my personal situation, I feel that they can give homeowners excellent flexibility, especially during a pandemic. And although, again, not my personal situation, this can allow for some passive income to current homeowners. I also believe that ADUs in the right setting can help aid in creating community because of the intimacy that an ADU can create. Personally, I am currently a family of 6 and potentially 7. I have 2 kids, potentially a third on the way, and a mother and a mother-in-law. So I have a household, and I would love to have an ADU for my mom and or mom-in-law so that they can, have a feeling of independence, but also, it allows us to be together as a whole family. So for these reasons, I am in support of 86-020, the accessory dwelling unit. And thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
You're a perfect example. Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you
very much so.
Thank you for your comment. All right,
Sure.
next.
Next is Bob Hercules.
Bob?
Hi. Oh,
Hello.
yes, what do you want to do? Hello, this is Julie Johnson speaking for my husband, actually.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. Hi. So I'm speaking about the request to change the zoning on the 1900 block of Orrington. And a number of my neighbors are going to be speaking about other aspects of this. But I, in particular, am going to talk about, whether or not affordable housing is an aspect of this, which, and I want to start out by saying my husband and I are completely support any efforts in this city to create more affordable housing. We think it's an incredibly important topic. But the situation on our block, 1900 Orrington, is about student housing, not affordable housing. And the fact that our zoning right now, R4A, is making us a target for investors who want to subdivide single-family homes into multiple units. They charge, next to the university as we are, they charge extremely high rents, and they market strictly to students. Here's an example from a student housing website that we found. It's in quotes, 3 units in one, 11 bedrooms, take it all for $7,200 a month. So, very few people, individuals or families can afford these rents. For us on the block, our concerns are lots of students with, very young tenants and absentee landlords. We've seen the effect of this on Maple south of Noyes, on Hamlin, Gaffield, Sherman, and we really want to not have that happen here. We also just want to say that we don't see that there's a particular need for more student housing.
Ms. Johnson, 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. I just want to say that, we fighting for fighting special use permits is really in a very tough mountain to climb. We are really hoping that isn't something that we're forced to do. It's been an exhausting process just getting to this meeting. And I really hope we can keep this a family block. It's been that way for 24 years. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.
Next up, Dan Shapiro on P3.
Mr. Shapiro.
Good evening, Alderman Rainey. Can you see me and hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Wonderful. I have a brief presentation and some comments I'd like to make on behalf of the owners and residents on the 1900 block of Orrington. It's my understanding that was sent out before, and if I could indulge the committee to allow me to go through it, I would really appreciate it.
Yes, we agreed in advance to allow a presentation.
All right, so I'm going to do my best now to share a screen. Can everyone see the first page of the PowerPoint? Okay, great. So as I said before, I represent several homeowners on the 1900 block of Orrington, and on their behalf, we strongly support the rezoning from R1 to R4A. Evanston has a series of standards that must be achieved for a map amendment to be successful. And in this case, I'd like to go through the standards briefly and show you why, in this case, the rezoning is appropriate and satisfy the standards. First standard is that it has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. The second is that it has to be compatible with the overall character. The third of the neighborhood, The third is whether it will have an adverse effect on the value of adjacent properties. And the fourth is the adequacy of facilities and services. That fourth factor is not applicable in this case. So to best apply and talk about these standards, I've prepared a PowerPoint. You'll see in this area where my cursor is the area that we're talking about. This is an aerial which shows the character of the neighborhood, from the aerial perspective, character of the neighborhood. On this slide, I've identified the R4A property, the block that is zoned R4A, as well as the boundaries of 2 historic preservation districts in Evanston. And I would only comment that of all the historic preservation districts in Evanston, this is the only one that has both the local and historic boundaries, which include these properties. This area, this block rather, is really graced by historic architecture. It's the oldest block in the historical district. It's well maintained in terms of the homes. It has a landmark home in 1922 Orrington. And if you look at this in the context of what the purpose of R1A is, you can see that the rezoning to R1A meets perfectly with what the intent of R1A is in the zoning ordinance. R1A is intended, as the zoning ordinance says, to be a single-family residential district to provide for single-family development at the lowest density within the city and to preserve the present physical character of that area while allowing infill development. This area, which I'll show in just a moment, shows that preservation. But this slide is important for you to see that the R4A is here where the cursor is, in a large R1A, which is north of Foster, goes many blocks to the north, is immediately adjacent to the area. So here's a historical picture of what Orrington looked like. Now we move forward in time. And this is around 1999 and today. You will see that this area is, again, has been preserved. It's got magnificent architecture, magnificently maintained homes, and is consistent with the R1 zoning district. So now let's talk about the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan talks about several factors which are applicable here. It encourages structures and sites of neighborhoods to maintain their historical and local significance. It encourages neighborhood assets to be enhanced while recognizing that each neighborhood contributes to the overall social and economic quality of the city of Evanston. Historic heritage should continue to be identified and preserved. And it says that these areas should continue to assist neighborhoods to recognize and preserve their own historically significant assets. Well, picture speaks 1,000 words. And these just initial pictures show that to be true. So therefore, the R1 would be consistent with what we see in the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan, interestingly, does not call for redevelopment in this area. In fact, the staff report said that the proposed rezoning would ensure that the largely single-family character of the block face remains through stricter regulations of uses in bulk structures. Now let's talk about whether it's compatible with the neighborhood. Here's some pictures of the 1900 block of Orrington. This is the landmark building, home rather. So I show you these so you get a sense of what the character is on the 1900 block. Now let's go just immediately north, across the street on Foster. Here's a comparison. These homes, these styles, these architectures, it is dramatically similar. Orrington, 1930, and then just north across the street, where the large R1 zoning district exists. So I would suggest to you that these properties are compatible with the R1 immediately across the street. The staff report says that the rezoning could be compatible with the overall character of existing development in the immediate vicinity, as there are existing single-family homes within this block and in the immediate surrounding area. Contrast, however, to other R4 and R5 properties, and I say R5 because that's the zoning district immediately to the west. And here are some R5 properties immediately to the west, which clearly are not similar or compatible with what we see on Orrington. So I would suggest that the R1 zoning is much more compatible and similar in characteristics to what we see in the 1900 block of Orrington. And so therefore that factor, I would suggest, has been satisfied. As I said before, the comprehensive plan talks about historic preservation districts, which this community values very, very highly. The application 1999 to have this area be included as part of the Northeast Historic District says that the historic district retains a strong degree of historic integrity. Of the 546 primary structures, 474 contribute to the historic and significance of the district. We submit that the 1900 block has historic integrity. Another quote from the application 1999, to assure that the Northeast Evanston will remain primary single-family residences. Another policy statement along with the comprehensive plan that identifies this area to be single-family, and therefore, in our opinion, R1 would be appropriate. We talked about the standards. We talked about the purpose of R1. If left unamended, or if left as is, there are a number of special uses which could be applied for in this area, including retirement community, homes, hotels, shelters, transition shelters, and importantly, multifamily housing, membership organizations, which include fraternities and sororities, and congregant housing. It's these three which I'd like to focus your attention on for the moment. There's been great pressure put in this area for developers to come in, convert, or apply for special uses to allow for these types of these uses in particular. This has happened. Whether they got a special use permit or not, it has happened. You can see it on the block. And so as a result, what is going on is there's been deferred maintenance in many of these along, and in this area or close to this area, there's been noise, garbage, and other influences that really adversely affect the owners and the occupants of these historic structures and these structures that have been there for over 100 years. So this pressure has been really building and building. And we suggest that the only way to stop this pressure and stop the either authorized or unauthorized special uses for these other things is for an R1 map amendment. During the last hearing, there was a developer attorney who suggested—
Your time is up, I'm sorry, so let's wind it.
I'm nearly done, but thank you. I appreciate your indulgence, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Can you wind it up in a minute?
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is, as I was saying, the developer attorney suggested this is inappropriate because they're going to be legal nonconforming. To the extent any legal nonconforming is expanded, they can seek a major variation. So there's an avenue for that type of interest to go forward to the extent they want to conform the legal nonconforming in the future. In all, R1 is the most appropriate and the best device to rezone this area, not only because it satisfies the standards, but because it's the right thing to do to preserve this area. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, can you take down your—
Yes.
Okay. There you go.
Next speakers are Kenn and Susan Bearman.
Okay. If you're speaking on this topic, please keep it very short so others can have an opportunity to speak.
Yes, thank you. I timed it. It shouldn't go over. It will not go over 3 minutes. Thank you.
No, I'm talking 2 minutes, please.
Okay. Can you hear? You can hear me though, I take it.
Perfectly.
As a resident single-family owner on this block, we support the changes to R1 because we want to preserve the family and community feel to the southern border of the Northeast Evanston Historic District. Just as the block was identified as an integral part of the Northeast Evanston Historic District, it is equally an integral part of the other single-family homes in the district just to the north. And zoning adjustment to R1 recognizes the important role this block plays in the community in the historic district. We have owned our home in 1922 since June 1997. I've lived here for more than 23 years, raising 4 of our children. The house was designed by prominent architect Charles Robb Ayers and built in 1896. It is an Evanston historic landmark and part of the Northeast Evanston Historic District. In 1999, shortly after we moved in, the Northeast Evanston Historic District was recognized as part of the National Register of Historic Places. It is important to note that the boundaries of this historic district include the 1900 block of Orrington, specifically this one block of Orrington just north of Emerson. The houses on this block are among the oldest in the historic district. The application notes its importance several times. The beauty and historic significance of this block has remained intact because of the care and efforts of the family that have lived in these single-family homes. Of more than 500 primary buildings in the historic district, 95% of them were built as single-family residents. The homes in this block, with the exclusion of the owner-occupied rooming house, was built and remained mostly owner-occupied single-family homes. In 1917, Evanston's first comprehensive plan established the Northeast Evanston would remain primarily a single-family residence. The 1999 Historic District confirmed this commitment, and the homeowners on this block have invested in that vision. One more paragraph. Until recently, high rent rates generated almost exclusively by Northwestern students have lured investors to this block to increase density and profits. While historic district regulations protect facades, they cannot mandate a love for these homes. It takes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I know it's rude, but we have to move on. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, good night.
Next,
Next up, Max Ross, and after that, Shawn Jones.
please keep your comments.
I also have a prepared statement that I timed to 3 minutes, but I'll do my best. My name is Max Ross. I live in the 1900 block of Orrington. I've lived here for 12 years. I hope to live here with my family for many more years. When I moved here, there were not any student houses near me. In the past few years, there are now 3 that have been converted that are affiliated with sororities or fraternities. We've experienced problems in 12 months that we haven't never experienced in the 12 years, including noise, public drunkenness, urination, other issues. One of the reasons developers are attracted to this area is the option of converting these properties to 3 or 4 flats, more with the coach house, to maximize profitability by squeezing in as many students as possible. These convert properties would be extremely appealing for Greek houses and other large student groups. Developers have been asking about buying these houses on this block for this exact purpose. The special use process is an insufficient safeguard against this. The outcome would be unpredictable, and it would put the burden on neighbors to fight developers at every attempt at conversion. This is not about affordable housing for Evanston residents. It's literally the opposite. These landlords rent to students for $1,000 a room. What these developers are doing is blocking Evanston families from ever being able to live in these houses. If the zoning change we are discussing here does not happen, I fear I will have to sell my house. And what family will buy a house next to what I've described to you? Several large groups of students in consecutive houses sharing a large yard that is perfect for beer pong tables and huge parties. Would you buy a house next to that? I most likely would have to sell to a developer who would do the same thing to my house. Then my neighbor will have to do the same, and the next neighbor the same, and that would be sad not just for us, but for this beautiful historic block. It's one of the oldest in Evanston. The first block that many Northwestern visitors see when they first come to town. Okay, thank you.
You made a real good case. Thank you. Next.
Next up is Shawn Jones and Dave Schoenfeld after that.
I know Shawn will keep it to less than 2 minutes.
You know it, Alderman Rainey, although there's my video. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shawn Jones. As you know, I represent 3 property owners of the 12 property owners who would be impacted by the change of zoning, the rather radical down zoning from R4A to R1. This is a mixed medium density area, obviously. It's been this R4A for a long time. it just doesn't make sense to downzone to the most restrictive residential zoning available. It is the opposite of equity. It is the preservation of privilege. The Plan Commission recognized this and voted 7-2 against a zoning change. Most importantly, I think they realized that the zoning change will not solve the problems that have been outlined. R1 will not stop beer pong in the yards. Anyone can do that in their yard in an R1 just as easily as in an R4A. It just won't stop parties. It won't stop students from being interested. It won't stop people from buying and renting to students. It's the wrong tool to address these issues. Further, fully half of the properties, 6 of the 12, would be non-conforming. They don't fit within R1 already, right now. Some of them, there's been a reference to the rooming house. There is a multi-family house. There are at least three properties that lots are not big enough to be R1. Surely an indication that this classification is wrong for this block when half of the properties don't fit. It causes problems if there's a fire or if there's any changes they want to make or any rehabilitation, any changes you want to make to the property if it is non-conforming. Finally, this is already in an historic district. There are already restrictions on what we can do on these properties. If you take a look at page 32 of your meeting agenda, this is just like a little peninsula of R1 that juts down in the middle of R5 and a bunch of university properties around it. It really is just not appropriate. Do not change to the most inflexible, least equitable, most privileged zoning possible for this single block. Thank you.
Thank you, Shawn. Next, Dave
Next up
Schoenfeld.
is Dave Schoenfeld and then Mike Basilko.
Yes, thank you, Alderman Rady, and thank you, members of the committee. My name is Dave Schoenfeld. I live at 2039 Orrington. That's approximately 1 block north of the 1900 block. I've been involved with, thank you. I've been involved with Northwestern Neighbors for 25 years, the Northwestern Neighbor Association, most recently as its president, and I'm a member of the city university committee focusing on land use issues here as well. I strongly favor this amendment to rezone this block. The neighborhood has worked extremely hard for decades to protect its residential character against the constant threat of development pressures. And the prospect of a wave of absentee ownership and rental houses on the 1900 block is as great a threat to that residential character as we have faced in at least 25 years. Obviously, if the owners are hiring an attorney to speak to this committee, they have plans for the future. This is not just about maintaining the current use of these properties. Allowing that block to turn over to absentee ownership, student rentals, as we've seen nearby on Sherman Avenue, would create a situation in which students treat the block as a part of the Northwestern campus, while the university has no responsibility for their behavior. This development inevitably would result in severe disruptions to the lives of the families living in what is meant to be a residential and not a university setting. This in turn would surely lead to further decline of the block as a family neighborhood. I can tell you from observation that the owner occupants of this block have committed substantial resources to preserving and enhancing the historical integrity of that block. The zoning should be consistent across our entire neighborhood, and as has been noted, that block is the only one that is not R1 at the moment and lacks the protections that the rest of the neighborhood has. The residents of the 1900 block should have the same zoning protection enjoyed by the rest of their neighbors. This is particularly important to protect the south end of Orrington from becoming predominantly student housing, poorly supervised by absentee landlords. And I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Dave. Mike Basilko.
Next up is Mike Basilko and then Robbie Marcus.
I'm going to be quick. So I support the P2 resolution, but I think it should be written a little more inclusively. The way the document reads, it suggests environmental justice, and especially the tracking of unhealthy environmental situations in Evanston are limited to certain areas of Evanston, which I don't think is accurate. It's a good initiative, but there are unhealthy environmental areas that exist throughout Evanston. I think these environmental problem areas should be tracked carefully throughout the city. Thank you.
Good point.
And then Robbie Marcus.
Hello there. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. Good evening to members of Planning and Development Committee, residents and attendants, city staff. My name is Robinson Arabi Marcus. I'm the co-founder and vice president of the Evanston Development Cooperative, or EDC, and I'm here speaking in support of item P5, the accessory dwelling unit ordinance. Through this ordinance, I really believe that Evanston is taking one small step away from exclusionary or single-family only zoning and really towards a zoning code that does not discriminate on the basis of income or race. The amount of abundant space in our alleys, backyards, and even inside our existing homes demonstrates that we have the opportunities in front of us to house workers, older adults, renters, and young people alike, and only if our current zoning code allows for these types of homes. By legalizing internal or attached accessory dwelling units through this ordinance, such as basement and attic conversions, this ordinance can help Evanston expand housing options across our community at a smaller scale and a lower cost. And additionally, through these changes to the building lot coverage and off-street parking requirements, item P5 can make it easier to create accessible ground level ADUs for older Evanstonians that are seeking to stay in their community as they age. Specifically, I do encourage P&D committee to consider withdrawing one amendment in this ordinance. It's the requirement that common ownership exists between the owner of the primary structure and the accessory dwelling unit. By restricting the creation of two separately owned housing units or condos, we believe this amendment forces people to own more housing and land, working against equity and affordability. In fact, I actually looked into it. I was curious, and the state of California passed a bill last year to explicitly allow nonprofits to condoize a main home and an ADU. Under the bill, community land trusts can condoize and sell these two separate housing structures as affordable units. So given that the restrictive nature of the ownership amendment would ban these types of housing opportunities, we respectfully ask P&D to consider removing that from the ordinance. That aside, I encourage you all to vote yes and move this forward. This ordinance will not single-handedly solve housing affordability issues, but it's a tangible positive step forward. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Are we next up, Chris Van Venete. I think he signed up for P1. I'm not sure he's here. And then after that is Jennifer O'Neill.
Say the first person again so they know. I don't see them.
Van Venete. He was signed up for P1, so I don't think he doesn't know. So Jennifer O'Neill is up for P5.
He probably left. Jennifer, are you here?
I am here.
There she is.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer O'Neill. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Evanston. And I thank you for this opportunity to express our support for amending the city code to create accessory dwelling regulations, unit regulations. And I totally concur with what you just heard from Robbie Marcus. To the point of even eliminating that one portion. Wanted you to know that the League of Women Voters has strong positions within the areas of land use, housing, and community health and wellness. So we have strong positions that really support this amendment. Within its program, the League supports zoning that protects and enhances our community while providing reasonable standards as well as flexibility. We support community involvement with Evanston's housing for older adults and other services and housing alternatives for them. And as you all know, we strongly support policies and programs which increase affordable housing opportunities. We believe that the proposed amendment is consistent with these league positions and our longtime commitment to housing options that will best serve the entire community. We believe the addition of ADUs would be an important step towards addressing the growing need for accessible, affordable homes in Evanston. So, the Evanston League supports accessory dwelling units as a valuable housing option, and specifically the proposed amendment, and we hope that you will support it too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you.
Next up, Tina Payton, and then after that, Rebecca Biter.
And how many after that?
After Rebecca, there's 6 more.
We have to get to our agenda. It's getting late. All right. Tina, are you here? All right. How about go to the next person and we'll come back to Tina. No.
Rebecca.
Rebecca?
Hello, I'm trying to, am I showing up?
Yes, you are showing up.
You can see me? All right, I've cut this down. I've cut it down, but I'm gonna go. So good evening. We purchased our home on the 1900 block of Orrington 3 years ago. The sellers shared our new home's history with us, including photos taken before, during, and after they renovated it, maintaining its historic character. They spoke of their kind neighbors, like the one pushing the snowblower along our sidewalk on our first snow. We have worked hard to be good caretakers to this charming historic home while it is ours. I fear that absentee landlords renting to rotating groups of students would be less attentive to maintenance issues. When I'm working in the front yard, walkers and bikers stop to tell me how much they enjoy this street, mentioning the trees, the gardens, the houses. They don't seem to see the 1900 block of Orrington as anything separate from the blocks to the north, any more than we did when we were house hunting. So folks other than those living on this block find joy in the historic character of the neighborhood. And it is a neighborhood, and the 1900 block of Orrington is part of Orrington Avenue. Would we have bought this house if it was surrounded by off-campus housing? We would not. It is not in our nature to be the mean neighbor calling the authorities about noise or monitoring how many students actually live in a neighboring house. Will we be on alert for special use requests as long as we live here? Even if all of us take these duties on now, what happens to the block in the future? Will families move in again? Please help us to preserve this neighborhood by extending Orrington Avenue's single-family zoning to include the 1900 block, which is really just a continuation of one of Evanston's most beautiful historic streets. For those who currently live here and those who just enjoy passing through, and so future families will someday have the opportunity to be caretakers for homes that have been standing on Orrington Avenue for well over 100 years. That's it. I get it under 2 minutes?
I'm not sure, but my timekeeper didn't stop you. So next, please.
Tina Payton, or next is, after that is Julie Johnson.
Tina or Julie. Didn't Julie already speak? No.
I think she spoke on behalf of her husband.
Okay. Okay. Tina, Julie, maybe Julie and her husband have the same thing to say. Next, the third person.
We have the Radmans, Marco, Angie, and Susanna.
Okay. Maybe they just signed up. Okay, next.
Art Newman.
Art Newman, are you here?
I'm here.
1.5 minutes.
Thank you. Can you see me and hear me?
No, we can't see you, but we can hear you.
All right, there's my
there
video.
you are. There you are.
Okay, quickly, as you know, I represented this block for 14 years. What I want to tell you is the uniqueness of the block is it's right across the street from Foster Walker Complex, which is a major dormitory of Northwestern University. And it's my memory that the alcohol policy of Northwestern does not pushes the alcohol into the neighborhoods because they don't allow the drinking actually within the residences. So these people have a block right across the street from a dormitory, which one side of the block, which was Northwestern, you can't drink. On their side of the block, you can. While I was on the council, the call I got the most was about buying these types of properties on Sherman and Orrington to be specifically rented to students. It causes all types of problems because I'll just give you an example on the parking. If you put 12 students into one of these houses, that's potentially 12 cars. Just before, right after I got off the council at 2147 Sherman, that home, which was a 3-flat, which was the most magnificent landscaped property on the block of Sherman. It was owned by Larry Detmer. 6 months after he sold it, it was then owned by people who lived on the Maple Avenue block in Northbrook, Illinois. When I came home, and this is around August 14th of 2008, I found the landscaping was virtually destroyed. The bottom unit was boarded up because the window was bashed in. And what had been a beautiful property owned by an Evanstonian was now a property owned by somebody in Northbrook who had bashed out front windows and no longer had beautiful landscaping. So the people on this block have a unique problem, and the values of their homes. If you go into that R1 on Orrington, the homes in the 1910 to 1940 block are not as valuable right now, simply because they are across the street from Foster Walker. If you go to the 2200 or 2300 block of Orrington, the same home will be worth $200,000 or $300,000 more. So these people are fighting for their property values. They're trying to have some control over their future. And they simply, people want to buy these properties because they can charge a family who's paying $50,000 a year in tuition. They can charge for one bedroom a very large amount of money. And it's not going to create affordable housing on this block. It's going to create housing for students who don't want to live in the dorms. So I would urge you to support the amendment. It fits in, it's consistent with the R1 to the north, and these people do have a lot at stake, and I would hope that you would grant their proposed amendment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, are we finished, Alderman? Ms. Snyder?
We have a late sign up of Sue Lowlock.
Okay. You're muted. Here.
I will be very quick. I want to just speak. I'm Sue Lowlock from Connections for the Homeless and Joining Forces for Affordable Housing. Regarding P3, the rezoning on Orrington, we strongly oppose the proposed zoning change. If anything, we feel that zoning should be changed to move away from single family and single use zoning, and that problems with students should be resolved in other ways. The lack of affordable housing and the wave of evictions we are foreseeing after the eviction moratorium is over means we need to be more flexible moving forward, not less so. Regarding P5 on ADUs, we strongly support this ordinance and the changes it includes, with the exception noted by Robbie Marcus about ownership of both units on a site. While it doesn't specifically create affordable units, it does add a new level of flexibility in the city's land use that will open the doors to new types of housing with great potential for affordability. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. All right, we're going to close citizen comment, and we're going to move to our agenda. And the first item on our agenda will be the minutes of the meeting of July 27. May I have a motion, please?
Move approval.
Okay. Any corrections or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving July 27 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey, I have to call the roll.
Oh, that's right. I was going to remember to say that.
And was there a second on that?
Second.
I'm calling the roll. Second. Call the roll.
Okay. Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
Aye.
Alderman Revelle.
Aye.
And Alderman Rainey.
Aye. I thought we did that. Okay. All right. Okay. So I think I got a second on the minutes. Did I not? Yes.
I'll second the motion.
And we have to call the roll on the minutes. Right? You have to call
We just did.
No, I thought you called the roll. I thought you called it. Okay. All right. All right.
We can move on to P1.
All right. We're going to move on to P2, the environment. Okay.
Did we hold the first one or?
Yes. The applicant asked that it be held.
All right, so I move that we hold it.
Second.
Can we move to a date certain for that?
Does the applicant have a preference, or can we just hold it to the next? We're going to hold it to the next meeting.
The applicant is.
You need to call the roll.
The applicant wanted it held just till.
Alderman Fisk.
Okay, we're voting on the hold, right?
Hold on a second. Hold on, Eleanor. We're having trouble. You're having trouble with your sound.
Oh, okay.
There. That's good.
Alderman Rainey, for the record, I represent this applicant as well, and yes, the next meeting is what we are looking for.
Okay. The roll. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Fisk.
Okay, we're voting on the hold, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold to September 29th.
Right, aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
And Alderman Rainey.
Aye. Okay, I'll start out. First item on our agenda regarding issues is P2, and that is our staff is recommending the City Council adopt Resolution 72R20, and that is the support of the Environmental Justice Resolution. I move approval.
Second.
Do we have any presentation on this from anybody, staff member or member of the committee? Hearing none.
There's not one from community development, so unless there's others from the city manager's office.
Alderman Ravel raised her hand. Yes.
I just want to say how I know how many years actually this committee has been working on this resolution. I was part of the committee before I came on the council. They just put in tremendous amount of work, and I'm really delighted that it's come to us finally. And I just want to mention that what's really important is it's not only ensuring that there's protection from environmental hazard, it's also ensuring that there's equal access to the environmental assets of the community. I think that's a very important piece. And thirdly, the committee has always been very insistent on the importance of meaningful public engagement of citizens in the decisions that are going to affect the quality of their lives. So I just wanted to highlight those three important visions that the committee has had, and that the resolution is going to help us move forward with. So I urge our approval.
Absolutely. Alderman Simmons.
Thank you. Just echoing Alderman Ravel, really appreciate the organization's thoughtfulness in reaching out and making sure that many voices are included. Thank you for the tremendous attention you give to everything as it relates to environmental matters and how you push us and inform us on City Council. Very much in support of this. They've worked so hard. They've taken feedback and pushback and made a resolution that is appropriate, in line with our values here. And just really grateful for the work, the leadership of my neighbor, Janet Alexander Davis, on the organization, and all others that have served. Thank you so much for seeing this through.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing none, would you like to call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
And Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Yeah. Okay, the ayes have it.
All right. Thank you. Next item is ordinance 84-020, granting a map amendment at 1910 through 1946 Orrington Avenue and 714, 716 Foster Street to rezone the R4A General Residential District to R1 Single Family Residential District. Keeping in mind this is for introduction only tonight, I move approval.
Second.
Alderman Fisk, do you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Alderman Rainey, and thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. I want to make a couple of points. And over the past 30 years since we adopted the 1993 zoning ordinance, which put in place the T1 and T2 zoning districts, looking toward protecting the residential areas to the west of campus from university sprawl, things have changed. Historically, this block has been zoned R1, moved down to R4, and then moved down to R4A. And that was all as a result of recognizing the pressures not only in the first ward, but the fifth ward as well, the Fireman's Park neighborhood, areas to the north along Lincoln, and the 1900 block of Orrington. When it was clear that the university would most likely not be extending further west at that point, a new threat occurred, and that was with absentee landlords. So for a while, that was focused not only in the Fireman's Park neighborhood, which has an incredible array of affordable homes that were being overtaken by absentee landlords renting to students, but that occurred in the 2100 blocks of Sherman as well. And what we saw, as Alderman Newman referred, we saw a deterioration in not only the housing stock, but also in the just the general ambience of the neighborhood. A lot of late night parties, lots of drinking on the lawns, lots of just a confusing mix of activities that were more appropriate for a college campus than they were for a residential neighborhood. This is now moving onto the 1900 block of Orrington because it's zoned R4A. Now, the south end of that block is an extension of R5, which is on the east side of Sherman and wraps around Emerson down to Orrington. That's zoned R5, but the rest of the block is zoned R4A, and that's the area that we're asking be rezoned to R1 in response to the continuing pressure on this block by outside developers who have pretty much identified it as the next area in which they can make money. And let's make it really clear that the neighbors were speaking to the fact that this is not affordable housing. I mean, we're talking about $1,000 per bed in these houses. And that is nowhere near what affordable housing is. So I'm sorry, Sue, I absolutely disagree with your comments. This is something else that's going on here. So besides the disruption to the neighborhood, I think the neighbors also made a very good case of the fact that once a block starts turning over, who's going to want to live there? And we have seen that case not only in Fireman's Park, but also on the blocks on Sherman Avenue. All you have to do is go over there and talk to the neighbors, and you will know exactly what is happening. So this is an opportunity for us to help support these neighbors who have worked so hard to improve their houses and to enjoy living there. The fact that Shawn Jones brought up that half the houses were not compliant with R1 zoning, well, a lot of that is the fact that the lots are less than 7,200 square feet. They're very much like the lots in Northwest Evanston. that are zoned R1 but are less than 7,200 square feet. So we've got a perfect example that you don't have to be 7,200 square feet to be excluded from R1 zoning. Regarding the Northeast Evanston Historic District, I was one of the authors of the district. I know this district. I have photographed every single structure in that district, over 1,000 structures between Emerson on the south and Sheridan Place on the north. I know every single one of them, and this block is incredibly important. This is a historic district that is a textbook case of following the development of suburban residential districts for the last 130 years. And I'm happy that the neighbors are proud of that and recognize that, because we should recognize it. Orrington Avenue is the spine. Orrington Avenue is zoned R1, except for this block. This block ought to be zoned R1 too. We ought to support the neighbors. I think this is a very reasonable request. I do not want to put the neighbors in a position of having to fight special uses and wake up every morning wondering if another developer is going to show up and be applying for a special use to convert a formerly single-family home into a 2 or 3 flat. That's just not fair to do this to a wonderful neighborhood where people really do care and have made an investment in our community. Finally, it's fine for people to make money. People make money all the time, but this is to have absentee landlords in your neighborhood renting to students. And I can share with you the photographs that even over the past several weeks, but longer than that, on these properties, again, Lincoln, Fireman's Park, Sherman Avenue, and now Orrington. Who would want to buy and live there and invest in these properties? It's a very, very serious problem that I think we need to look at, even going further down the road as a committee. But for right now, I'm going to ask for your support to rezone this R1.
Okay. Alderman Simmons.
Thank you. So much to consider here. And as in the 5th Ward, obviously I'm getting the complaints from the Fireman Park neighbors. So there's a couple things. One, this isn't necessarily affordable housing. The business model that is advocating here obviously are not going to be affordable units, but we certainly do need to consider equity and affordability as we make these decisions. I think some time ago we talked about having a citywide zoning analysis and looking at it at a more comprehensive level. So I want to be careful that we don't do anything to restrict the expansion of affordability throughout the city and set a precedent by downzoning here. But we do need to do more to respond to the concerns that the neighbors have in this area from the conditions of some of the student housing and the lack of professionalism and attention from some of the landlords in that area. And so I think that we need to certainly do more now, especially if we're looking to downzone an entire block because of this issue, to hold Northwestern accountable, the students, and even look at our other city ordinances so that we can deal with the real issue here, which is quality of life for the permanent residents over there and their concerns about the student behaviors, which some are reasonable and some are absolutely unreasonable. So I don't want us to move forward in making a zoning decision without addressing what our real issues are here. And Alderman Fisk, I know that you have some other ideas on how we can manage and better regulate some of the student behavior issues. Can you talk more about that so that it's clear that we wouldn't be making a decision to address just student behaviors and landlord issues, just making a zoning decision based on that and not giving attention to the real issues that are valid and the concerns that the residents have?
Mm-hmm. Alderman Rainey, is it all right if I speak?
Oh, please.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Alderman Simmons. What we have before us is the structure that we have right now. And I think we need to make a decision on this because this the zoning ordinance that's before us is the one that we're being presented with. Where we go in the future with the discussion, that's a larger discussion, and it's a complicated discussion that we've started, and we're starting again tonight with the accessory dwelling units and focusing on affordable housing and all of those things. But what we have before us is we have people who are making decisions of properties that they acquire based on the zoning ordinance that's in front of them. And we want to provide the protection that we can to the neighborhoods and especially to these neighbors who are under direct threat from this. So it's not something that we can put off for the next foreseeable future while we have a conversation. That conversation can exist no matter what we do tonight. We can rezone to R1 tonight and then have the conversation. But right now, the important thing to do is to recognize that we're dealing with the zoning ordinance that's in front of us, and to make the correction that needs to be made at this moment, and then go on. And I'd be happy to talk about that at a future meeting. I think we need to do that.
But the concern here, though, Alderman Fisk, really is that and understanding the decision needs to be made to protect this block and what their desires are for their lived experience on their block. But what are we saying for the rest of Evanston? That so if they're not going to spread to that block, then it's okay that they go further west into Fireman's Park and then eventually over Ridge. I think that we need to address the concerns that we have with the type of housing, the types of landlords, and then even look at what is the need for housing with the new terms of housing for the Northwestern students and mandatory, on-campus living. How does all of that play in as we make this decision? Is that something that has been considered? And I didn't watch the zoning meeting, so.
I'm sorry, you what?
I didn't see the commission meeting, so I'm not sure what any of the feedback was.
They didn't handle it.
Yeah, I think one of the difficulties with the commission meeting is that they felt that the special use review under R4A might give enough protection. But what that does is that it says to the homeowners, you wake up every morning and you need to figure out if anybody has applied for a special use, and then you need to organize and you need to fight it. I mean, that's exactly what the Fireman's Park neighbors have had to do now for years. The problem in Fireman's Park and in that block that Art Newman was referring to on Sherman was that so many of the properties had already been converted to multifamily that it wouldn't be possible to downzone at that point. It's the mix is just too great, and that's not the case in the 1900 block of Orrington. And I would be the first one to say to folks, in my opinion, of watching meetings over a long number of years and watching the Plan Commission make decisions and Zoning Board of Appeals and things like that, is that they look at the composition of the area, and that even comes into play when you're looking at what zoning classification should be applied to a certain area. So the Fireman's Park neighborhood is different, and the 21-2200 block of Sherman, while that had a good mix of single family, it was also probably 50-50 multifamily. That's not the case. This block on Orrington has been single family, with the exception of the apartment building on Foster, has been single family forever. So this is a different situation, and one that we can apply the R1 zoning to, where it wouldn't be applicable in other neighborhoods. But there's no reason that we can't have the discussion about equity in zoning and all of that going forward, if we made this, if we voted to make this R1 tonight, or send it to council?
We're not going to make it R1 tonight. It's only for
No, I
introduction.
mean, send it on to council, right, that's what I meant.
But let us, a few more people would like to speak.
Is it for introduction?
But no matter what we do, if we do change it to R1, the current problems you have aren't going to go away because of R1. And what I'm asking, what I want to ask is, what have we done with our building department and our current zoning? What have we done? I mean, it sounds like we've got some health department issues, some zoning department, building department, property standard issues. I've been inquiring in my ward about some problems I've got. We've not done inspections in some community development block grant areas since 2015. We need to get our inspectors out there. You know, you talk about hiring some environmental people to go out and do some, adding some staff there. We need some more inspectors. We need people in the health department to go out and start working on these kind of problems. Zoning is not going to help your problem because your problem. Wait. No. I'm talking about your current problems. All right, I'm going to stop. Alderman Wilson is next, and then.
Oh, can I just please answer your question?
All right, just quickie.
Okay, 30 seconds to answer this question. Here's what is going to happen: is that absentee landlords and developers tend not to buy in R1 zones. They can rent out houses to 3 unrelated persons, but they cannot rent out to multi.
It can't spread.
So that's going to discourage absentee landlords and investors from buying in these neighborhoods. And that's the root of the problem. It's not inspectors. It's not, although obviously that is a problem in other
You got a big problem. We heard about it tonight.
Yeah, no, I know about that. But it's going to give a sense of bring a sense of calm to some of these blocks where you have investors basically circling to buy houses.
I understand the spread, right? Alderman Wilson.
Thank you. I think you largely covered most of it. It is an important issue because it is highlighting an existing problem that's evolving into something else. Alderman Rainey, as you mentioned, it is for introduction, so this gives us a couple of weeks to both hear from people. I've heard from a number of people. I haven't had a chance to get back with all of those. But I appreciate the input I've gotten. And I think it, however we work through this zoning question, there are a number of other things that we need to be doing. So this is a more complicated problem than just the zoning. I hear what the residents are saying, and we need to take some really concrete steps here to address this and make sure that this does not develop into an even worse problem. So I think we should go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's it.
Alderman Nguyen.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I do support this because when you look at the map, it does make sense that this block be R1. And I do understand the neighbors there who, as they said, this is once the first domino falls, then the whole block goes. And I do remember the 2100 block of Sherman very well when it was a mixture of single families and 2 families. And it saddens me to realize that a number of the people who I know when they've moved out, and those places are no longer houses that a family or even 2 families would necessarily want to live in. So I agree with Alderman Rainey. This problem is, an inspector problem. I think we need to bring Northwestern in. I know this has been an issue that has always been a concern, but I think we need to see how we can make Northwestern be more responsible and also really get our inspectors in there so that houses don't look like what the attorney was showing us. That neighborhood is, especially around Fireman's Park and north on Maple, those were all wonderful single family homes in the past, and now they're just filled with students. And the price of them is beyond what a single family can afford. So I support the rezoning here, but we really, really need to step up our enforcement and go after these absentee landlords, because why should they be allowed to own a property in our community and allow it to become blighted? I mean, that, we would not do that in their community. So I think we have to come up with better, more stringent rules that we then apply to them.
Excellent. Alderman Simmons.
So my last comments on it, being the Fireman's Park neighbors, I'm committed to addressing this. And we have not been able to get the right mix of Northwestern accountability, student awareness, and our own enforcement. And so I'm disappointed that it's taken this zoning request for us to maybe all get together and figure out how we can enforce this. But I believe that it's been more isolated, habitual problem landowners that need to be addressed, whether we address them with nuisance premise or whatever other infrastructure or tool we have through our zoning department or the health department. But we need to get very serious about that because it's not fair to the neighbors. But I also want to be careful that we don't look at zoning because racism is embedded still in our zoning policy. And that I don't know if you've read the color law, but it's a great reference to understand more about how we still sustain our segregation and other disparities through zoning. But I want to make sure that as we advance this and it comes to action, that we are doing more to address the real issues and the frustrations that are really valid, that is very frustrating for me, and I'm sure Alderman Fisk, that we can't get this right, that the handful of habitual problem landowners aren't being enforced or fined or held accountable to uphold their property standards, and that Northwestern can do more. So I understand this is just for introduction, but I just want to ask everyone to think very seriously about our commitments to equity and racial healing and inclusion and what our neighborhoods look like as we consider this zoning change.
Yeah, I agree. All right. In the meantime, those of us who have questions regarding these properties who are not in the first ward, we should get our questions answered. Like, I'm very interested in knowing when they were all last inspected, are they all registered? Are there police calls there, fire calls? Those are the kinds of things we need to know about to find out if they are eligible to be nuisance premises.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if I saw that the chief is on, we could get some of that information from him and some from you, Ms. Snyden. Okay. All right. So there's a motion and a second. Should we take a vote now? Has everybody finished commenting? All right. All those, we need a roll call. Yep.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
And Alderman Rainey.
Aye. All right. For those listening, this was a vote to refer this to committee to the council for introduction. So, all right. So moving on, next item is P4, which is Ordinance 80-020, granting a special use. The Zoning Board of Appeals and staff recommend adoption with conditions of Ordinance 80-020, granting a special use for a cannabis transporter. MJA Chicago LLC is the name, in the C1 Commercial District located at 1701 Howard Street. The applicant has complied with all the zoning requirements and meets all standards for special use for this zoning district. I move approval.
Second.
This is for introduction. All right. Comments, questions? I know a few things about this one, so if any, it's in my yes.
If you don't mind, I'm really excited to learn more about this as a business model coming into our city. Could you give us any background?
All right, I will give you some background. what I know. 701 Howard Street is kind of a famous location. It's commonly known as BZ Auto Repair. You might have heard of it. It's been in the family that owns BZ for over 40 years. The applicant is a social justice application for a transporter cannabis license. There is no license as of yet. As you know, the transporter and the craft grower and the infuser and the producer licenses did not get released when the other licenses recently got released. So anyway, they just wanted to get approved in case they are released. He's an applicant. So a transporter license is probably one of the lowest, least cannabis involved licenses. However, it's one of the most important because a transporter license has to do with being the distributor. In other words, it is sort of like a dispatch license with vehicles. So at this location, there will be vans, probably, I think 8 or 9 vans, it says in the report. And these vans will show up in the morning at 8 o'clock, and they will be dispatched to wherever the product is. And they will go and pick up the product and deliver it to wherever the requester is, the seller is, or the infuser is. And that's what they'll do. And there will never, it is not allowed by law for the transporter facility to ever have cannabis, the product, on its property. That vehicle, when it is in the driveway or in the maintenance area or in the garage area, must never ever have cannabis in the vehicle. So it's to pick up and deliver. That's it. There is tremendous requirement for security, and people at the public hearing wanted to know why was that if they weren't going to have any cannabis. And the requirement for security for all licensees, no matter what the license was for, was pretty similar. The legislators wanted everybody to have a lot of security, so that's why they have to have a lot of security. And it's from 8 to 8, and they're going to renovate the station. You know, it's a pretty nasty looking place, and they're going to improve the location. And the person at the hearing that was most supportive of it was the person who lives immediately behind BZ, because she said it's going to really improve the facility. And also, everybody that lives right near BZ has always been a friend of BZ. I mean, because BZ has always taken care of its neighbors, with one exception, and that was the Payton family who lives across the street. They had problems with snow removal. But other than that, people I used to be a neighbor of 1701. I lived at 1707 Dobson for almost 30 years. And, you know, they're just good people. And so we're hoping that they get a license. But as of right now, they're in line waiting with all the others who have not yet been notified. So that's what a transporter is. There are 8 vehicles, vans, that will pick up product and deliver it. And so one of the biggest problems with dispensaries right now is that they don't have enough product. So we need more transporters. So, yeah, go ahead.
Nothing to add. I'm in support.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not intense. You know, people aren't going to be lined. Nobody is going to be coming there for any product. The only people that will be there will be, you know, office people, the drivers, and the dispatcher. That's all. Nobody will be coming there to purchase anything. Okay. So hearing nothing, nobody else want to comment? All right. So we'll call the question. All those in favor? We need a roll call, right? Okay. This is for introduction.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen has left the meeting. Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel. And Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Okay. All right. Next item is ordinance 860020, amending Title VI of the Evanston City Code to create accessory dwelling units, ADUs, and to revise the calculation of building lot coverage. I move introduction.
Second.
Comments? Alderman Wilson, did you raise your hand?
No, I was just checking my mute button.
Oh, okay.
Which now I'll go back.
Alderman Ravel.
I just will express my strong support for this. I think it's opens up a nice array of opportunities for more auxiliary dwelling units of all types and opportunities for affordable housing and more housing options for residents in our community. I think it's a great step forward.
Alderman Simmons.
In the sake of time, I want to say that I support everything Darian Halligan said in his public comment, Robinson Marcus, and everyone else that has been in support. This is absolutely an opportunity to build wealth, sustain seniors to age in place, create healthy families and communities, and so on. And I am a sandwich generation member, so I have experience with all of the above.
Thank you. All right, hearing nothing else, could you call the roll?
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
And Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All right. Did you want to take something off, Ms. Knighton?
Yes, the item for communication, mobility in the time of COVID, which was an update on our transportation and mobility work in light of the pandemic and some other transportation issues, will be held until the next meeting, given the hour at this point, and you still have a full council meeting ahead.
All right. So we're ready to adjourn. All right. Would somebody like to move adjournment? Alderman Wilson, you look like an adjourner.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. We don't need to take the roll, I understand. Okay.
You do
We
not.
are adjourned. We're adjourned.
Back when? Let's see. Let's set our time for the council.